everyone. Welcome to the Upwork Enterprise webinar, Debunking Myths About Remote Hiring. Thank you for tuning in today. Our focus is going to be diving into some of the common myths that you may have heard or common concerns that the Upwork team has heard from you that might be preventing you from leveraging the remote freelance workforce to its full potential with your business. And I think today you've got some really tangible insights coming in this hour that's going to help you make some better informed decisions. It's really going to transform your business with the expert talent that's available. So before we get started, I'd like to take a minute just to tell you a little bit about myself and who I am and why I'm here today. My name is Sherry Cruz. I am an active freelancer on the platform as a learning and development consultant. That means I design and I develop e-learning and instructor-led training for a wide variety of clients, from startup companies to enterprise clients. I began on the platform in early 2011. I had just gotten my master's in educational leadership with a specialty in education and training management and a focus on instructional technology. And yes, in retrospect, I might have chosen something with a shorter title, because when you get tongue-tied saying your own degree name, it raises some eyebrows sometimes. But when I graduated with it, I just had this passion and excitement for the field and a wealth of knowledge to share. My hands were tied in finding a traditional job role. I had a toddler, I had a newborn, and I was married, still am married to an active duty Marine, so we were 1,000 miles from our nearest support system. That's when I came across Upwork and quickly realized there was an opportunity out there for somebody like me. So kind of got a few tester clients, got my feet wet, and then was able to see exactly what skills were marketable. So I skilled up, I bought the software that I needed to get, I trained up on it, and I made myself a fierce competitor on the market. So those nibbles became bites, those bites became reeling in the big fish, and now here I am 7+ years later, still using the platform, still loyal to it. Not because the opportunities to get traditional job roles didn't come by, because they have, but because this is still what I choose to do. And in case you haven't gotten a chance to read the white paper yet, Freelancing in America, released this year, you can get it on Upwork's website, but it says right there, there's 56 million Americans freelancing alone, 61% of which say they freelance because they choose to freelance. So there's myth number one busted before we even begin today. Freelancers aren't engaged in remote work because there's nothing better out there for them. In the majority of cases, like mine, this is the best of every world. It gives us the the work-life balance, the desired rate of pay, the freedom to choose my clients, my projects, and my ability to learn and engage fresh skills in this growing marketplace. So that's what makes this an appealing role to top-rated freelancers who are truly experts in their job fields. So now that you know who I am and why I'm here to kind of guide this conversation, I'd like to just cover a few things to remember throughout this webinar. First and foremost, please ask questions today. You can ask questions by going through the question section located at the top of your GoToWebinar control panel and type in and submit any questions that you have. We're going to try to answer as many questions as possible throughout the webinar and during the live discussion, and anything that we cannot cover during, we'll try to cover as much as possible at the end during a Q&A session. If we don't answer your question today, please don't hesitate to reach out to the Upwork support team afterwards. I'm sure they can help you with your questions later. But I really encourage you to use this feature throughout. We're offering to give you some real-time insight into the minds of some brilliant top-rated freelancers. They've engaged with a lot of clients such as yourself and are 100% here to help you today. So I encourage you to take advantage of that and ask your questions. Also wanted to let you know that the webinar is being recorded, and we'll be sharing the recording with you tomorrow. So some of the topics that we are going to be covering today, we're going to start by looking at getting started on Upwork. So what does that mean from successful job postings to successfully locating a freelancer and hiring them? We're going to talk about some of the hot topics and common questions that frequent the desks of both the Upwork team and freelancers. And we're going to talk about tackling big projects using remote talent. And finally, we're going to address as many of those questions as possible from you that weren't addressed throughout the webinar. So to give us some insight into these topics and to answer your questions today, Upwork has put together a remarkably talented panel of top-rated freelancers. And again, this is a really good opportunity for you to pick the brains of those talented professionals that have experienced the platform and can help you answer some of the questions about the myths that you may have heard and come across as well. Our panelists today are Noella Young, graphic designer, Julie Ewald, a digital marketing strategist and content creator, and Sherry Baker, a content writer. So ladies, welcome to the seminar.
Thank you.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
You guys, take a few minutes, just introduce yourselves, let us know, what your specialty is, what your experience has been, and what brought you to the Upwork platform. Sherry, let's start with you.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Sherry Baker, and I have more than a decade of experience leading communications for Fortune 500 companies, including Campbell Soup Company, Lockheed Martin, and more. My specialty is content writing, and through my agency, I support global enterprises who have a commitment to corporate social responsibility by managing their content and leading their communications. I came to Upwork looking for more flexibility in my career. And I always tell people that freelancing provides me with this really unique opportunity to be a part of both my family's and my clients' most pivotal moments. And so to me, like Sherry, I've had opportunities throughout the years to go back in-house to Fortune 500 companies, but I choose this as my career path because I find it just so fulfilling. So thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you, Sherry. Noella, can you share a little bit of insight into your path here?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Noella Young, and I'm a graphic designer. I specialize in designing sales and marketing materials for B2B small businesses who lack in-house marketing support. What sets me apart is that I take the time to learn about my clients' business goals before we start creating visuals, so that we're always keeping revenue generation as the focus of our projects. Prior to freelancing, I was a marketing manager at Microsoft, and I joined Upwork to connect with great clients, and I've been able to work with clients worldwide, so it's been great.
Thank you, Noella. And Julie, share with us a little bit, please.
Sure. Hi, my name's Julie, and I've been, I started with Upwork it's been about 8 years now, but today I'm a digital marketing strategist and content creator. We specialize in working with consultancies, including other marketers and unique technology companies. And it's been really rewarding. I really enjoy tapping into the remote workforce, both as a source of leads for my agency and for my own consulting practice, but also for hiring for our agency and for our clients' projects. So it's been something that's been really wonderful because we have access to such great talent. And also I'm able to connect with some really amazing clients and help them out with some really cool projects.
Thank you, Julie. Well, let's dive in. So I wanted to get started first and foremost talking about how our clients can get started on the platform, how they get started engaging remote freelancers. So some of our users are new to working with freelancers on Upwork, and we know there's a lot of options that go into posting a job and finding that talent for their various projects. So we'd love to get started just finding some guidance from each of you from your experience in receiving those job invitations and reading through those job postings. What is it that you look for in a good job post? What is it when you look at a job is going to attract you to submitting a proposal for that job?
Sure, Sherry. Yeah. So for me, I look for job posts that are really specific. So a lot of top-rated freelancers receive so many invitations to jobs that they have to be really discerning in even what they respond to. And one way I think clients can engage really great freelancers is by demonstrating that they've been really thoughtful in exactly what they need, because that way a freelancer can be really confident that they're a perfect fit for those skills. So like a great example would be like if I saw a press release posted, we need help with a press release. I might not really, want to respond to that. Whereas if there's a post that says something like, look, we're a global enterprise, we won this corporate award, we need a 1,000-word press release within the week, and by the way, it needs a quote from an SVP. So, then I'd look at it and think, okay, that's perfect, I can do that. So I think just being specific in your needs will help attract your perfect freelancer.
Excellent. Excellent. That's a great tip because it's so different than putting out a general job posting and looking for a jack of all trades. If you're going for an expert, if you're more specific, you're going to find that expert. Excellent. Thank you, Sherry. Noella, how about you? What makes you want to apply to a job?
Yeah, just to expand on what Sherry said, that's really great. I really like it when clients describe the type of freelancer that they're looking for. So some jobs are better suited to somebody who can follow direction really closely, can execute really quickly and accurately, whereas some jobs are more suited to more of a consultant. So somebody to walk you through the project, provide ideas and expertise. And so having that information from the client really helps me get a sense of whether I can deliver value on the project.
That's interesting. So not only just being specific in the job itself and the tasks, but even including a description of what kind of freelancer and communication they're looking for?
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent. Thank you. Julie, how about you?
I think for me, a big thing is finding good alignment. There's a lot of times where, folks maybe are looking for, let's say, they maybe need a generalist or they need someone that maybe has some of the skills that myself and my team bring to the table, but not all of them. If I'm able to see something that's a really good fit and I know that we're indeed able to help, it's the kind of businesses we work with. They're looking for either a consultant like me or folks like my agency. Having that kind of fit makes me really confident in wanting to go in knowing that it's going to be an engagement that's not only going to be something that I'm going to be able to bring something to the table and really enjoy, but at the same time, the client doesn't be able to be satisfied and see a successful outcome. So I really look for those that seem to be, a perfect fit.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Julie, do you think there's any red flags that you see when a post comes your way and it's just like there's no way or something that steers you away from applying for that job?
Yeah, there are quite a few actually. Not to scare all of you listening, but for example, as Sherry had mentioned, a lack of specificity. If someone just goes on and they're like, need brand strategy, I have no idea if you're the kind of company we work with. I don't have any idea what kind of budget it is. I have no idea if you're B2B or B2C. And it's going to be pulling teeth to get that information out of you. I'm busy. I don't have time for that. I move on, and I'm assuming that the whole engagement will be like pulling teeth then. I also look for, how I need communication. We work back and forth and flow. So I also want to look at your feedback. If I see a client that has poor feedback or people are saying they don't communicate well, I don't want to work with that person. At the same time, sometimes I also want to look at that feedback to see how people engage with freelancers. Just as freelancing and working remotely isn't right for everyone, working with someone remotely isn't right for every client. And so if you see, a queue of 1-star reviews for the freelancers they've worked with, major red flag. I have a good feeling I won't be able to make that person happy, and I don't want to step into that minefield.
Yeah, yeah. So just as a freelancer's site there on Upwork kind of serves as that living resume, so does the clients too. Excellent, excellent. Noella or Sherry, do you have any red flags that kind of turn you away from job posting?
I think those are big ones.
Yeah, sometimes very generic posts where they are inviting like hundreds of freelancers might be a little challenging. And so I really like to develop that personal working relationship with my clients. So when they're hiring a lot of freelancers and they're not really specific on who they like to hire, that usually might not be a good fit for me.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I would see if there's like a lot of people that they're interviewing right away or they've clicked the interview right away. It's kind of that same as a generic job post where maybe they're just clicking to hire everybody or to interested in hiring everybody, and are they really genuinely interested in what I have to offer so that it's a good working relationship.
Yeah.
Excellent. So it sounds like the key to the good job post and the big red flag is all about that specificity and that communication right from the get-go. Well, it can also be challenging, I think, for some of our new users, especially to decide what is the budget as they go to set a job, or decide do they post hourly or do they post fixed rate. So I think one of the concerns in this that's floating around out there a lot is that concern that that client has to be 100% sure about the market rate of their project before they even think about posting on a platform. So I'd love to get your insight on some of that today. Sherry, maybe start with you. Do you have any tips for hiring managers when they're looking to set their budget or set their timeline for a project?
Sure. So this can definitely be where people get stuck, right? Because you kind of know what you need and you go to post the job and you're like, should I post hourly? Should I post fixed price? What does that even mean? So it's definitely tricky. I think the first thing to figure out when you're posting a job is to determine your priorities. So start backward. Think about, okay, is my priority to take this big project and get it completely off of my plate? So in my world, that might look like, your intranet is driving you crazy. You don't want to deal with it. You just want someone to take it and for it to, be managed. If that's the case, then consider starting with a fixed price job and work with an expert who can just manage the whole project. If the opposite is true and your priority is more just having ad hoc support, your scope is kind of undefined, you're not exactly sure what you're going to need, then I would recommend starting more with an hourly job. And once you get that defined, don't get too caught up in the budget because you can talk to experts who will guide you and tell you what they'd recommend you do with the dollars that you have.
Mm-hmm. So it can be a little bit of a back and forth with the freelancers that they speak with?
Absolutely.
Excellent, excellent. Noel, I do believe you have some insights to add there as well with your experience.
Yeah, just to follow up on what you just mentioned, connecting on Upwork is just like having a conversation. And sometimes it's challenging to set a budget when you've never done a similar project in the past. So a lot of clients will set a placeholder value for the budget and then indicate that it's a placeholder and that they're welcoming proposals from different freelancers. And then when you do this, it's helpful to maybe even include an example of your desired outcomes. So you can either upload an attachment to the job description or have some links to sample work that you really like. And then when you do that, it's helpful to include some information around why you're providing those examples. So what aspects are relevant, whether it's a similar quality that you're looking for or the amount of content. Providing this context is really helpful for freelancers so they can be able to submit more accurate quotes.
Excellent. Excellent. Julie, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think these were all really great points that you've made. And I think having, setting a placeholder is one of the big ones. I think a lot of folks they're like, well, how much do I want to pay for this? I think it's important to go into it and thinking, I'm going to set this placeholder. I am not the expert in this, generally speaking, unless you're hiring someone for more, kind of a utility player kind of position. You're usually hiring someone because they know to do something that you don't. So set the placeholder, state that it's a placeholder, and then kind of wait and see what you start getting. And it might be that you're going to have to adjust the budget that you had in your head accordingly to the outcomes you want to get. But just kind of go into it with an open mind and start seeing what comes in.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, and you might have to be flexible with that budget, or back to Sherry's point, maybe the budget is your priority and you have to figure out what's going to fit within that budget. So I think that's interesting, and that's a really key point for our listeners here is it's incredibly important that they are specific and they give you a lot of detail in the job description and the skills that they're looking for, but that budget is flexible. That's part of the negotiation, and that's something that they can include you in the conversation. So having a placeholder is not going to scare away top talent such as yourselves. Thank you. So in addition to the budget, there's some other considerations that they need to think of when they're tying in remote talent, like deadlines and communications. There's a lot of concern out there over whether or not a remote workforce can really offer that same level of effective communication that an in-house workforce would offer, right? There's no popping over the cubicle and checking in and, hey, how you doing? So, Cheryl, let's start with you. How do you set those expectations with your client, like those timeframes and those frequency of those check-ins, boundary setting? What does that look like for you?
I'm sorry, did you say Sherry?
Yes.
Sorry, okay. Sure, yeah, so for me, it's about being 100% open and honest from the very first conversation. So in the very first time that I talk to a client, I like to just let them know what my availability is. I let them know that, they can expect to hear from me within 24 hours all of the time. And I also let them know that I do work an untraditional schedule. because I work on Upwork so I can be more with my family. So they'll always hear from me. I do hold my office hours, and if that's a fit for their needs, then that's, perfect. And if not, then that's totally fine too. So I think being just open and honest from the beginning is just mutually beneficial for everybody.
Excellent. Excellent. No, I think that's fantastic advice to be able to set that standard from the get-go.
Yeah.
Noella, how about you?
Yeah, it's good to have a process with clients. So usually when we're establishing those first few working days, I like to talk about how I like to work and get a sense of how they like to work, whether they want to contribute a lot of ideas and we can go through them together, or if they want me to come up with a lot of different ideas for us to discuss. So being able to discuss the process and tailor it to every client, that usually really helps.
Thank you. And Julie, how about you? How do you stay with that availability and communication?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, and speaking to what Sherry and Noella have said, a lot of it is really setting these expectations right up front, because I do want to have these successful outcomes. I want this to be a mutually rewarding relationship where we see stuff actually happening. And so going in and having open communication right away, I even usually start right off in the cover letter talking about, especially if someone says, hey, I need a brand and marketing strategy, and these are the kind of things I want. I'll be like, great, this normally takes this many weeks. Unless you really want to expedite things, most of our clients, depending on their availability, we'll be talking only once or twice a week, and we're going to talk for this often, and we'll be getting deliverables this often, really right up front, just so that they know. And if they're like, oh, actually, I need this in a week, I can say I can't do this process in a week, and we don't have to waste each other's time. And I think also with communication, as someone, I run an all remote team of 20 people worldwide. While we have a small core team, I live in Milwaukee now, and a small core team back in Las Vegas, where I'd been based. I don't see any of these people. We talk on Slack, we communicate back and forth, we send emails, we have phone calls, we hop on conference calls, and we're able to effectively, for some of our clients, work as their in-house marketing team remotely, by just using these tools. And it's really setting up these open lines of communication. And some of our clients are like, ew, I don't like Slack, they want to use something else. That's cool. It's really whatever we need to keep that open line of communication, so that to effectively collaborate, and be an effective partner.
Excellent. I love that. So I think it's something that can be considered when you're talking about the job posting. If they really need, like you said, to your point, Julie, if they need something done in a week, that usually takes you two. That's something maybe they consider putting in the job posting of how quickly they need things done. But that conversation of what tools you want to communicate, how often you want to check in, is absolutely part of that interview process to make sure it's successful on both ends. So sounds like from all of that, from the job posting all the way through that conversation, communication, that's going to be the key to building trust, starting from that beginning of the relationship, and how does that partnership kick off from the very beginning. I would like to kind of transition into some of our hot topics on that note, but still stay on that same idea of building the trust. So we start that trust with that communication in the job posting and the interviews, but then that trust has to continue, right? As that relationship builds, to make sure that that trust develops as you're starting the project and really diving in. So Sherry, you've got a global team. You work with a lot of big clients in your agency. What are some of the biggest security and privacy concerns that you hear from your clients as you begin to build that relationship and work with their material?
Sure. So two things I'd say about that. This is something else that can get people stuck, right? How can I really trust somebody? And be aware that freelancers feel sometimes the same way, right? How can I trust that I can work with someone that I've never met? So there are two things I'd recommend doing. The first is if you're really concerned about privacy, let's say you're a global enterprise or a Fortune 100 company, and this idea of working with someone you've never met just doesn't align with the confidence you need to have that everything's kept proprietary. I sign an NDA as well. I know Noella and Julie do too, with most of my clients. So any freelancer will be totally open to the idea of signing an NDA if that's something that would make you feel, really comfortable that everything's handled the right way. So that's one. And two, I would say this is something that, some people might disagree with, but I think that being personal and really getting to know your freelancers goes a long way to building trust. I don't think there's any reason why geography should be a barrier to a personal relationship with your team. And so we were, talking before this call about how I have a client who, knows my birthday, and she knows my daughter's birthday. And it just means so much to me. And so little things like that are no different than working with your internal team. I think that there's a way to really get to know people, and that will establish a relationship that will be great for both of you moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great tip, especially when you're looking with a long-term relationship with somebody. To establish that personal connection drives that loyalty more than anything else. Absolutely. And legally, the NDA, absolutely. I think we've all been there, done that, signed it to protect the client as well as ourselves. Yeah. So I think to dig a little deeper into that, I'd like to share some insight that I received. I was at the Upwork Enterprise Summit in San Francisco this year. And some of the feedback that I had heard from the enterprise clients was that they're concerned in engaging with the freelance community that there's a risk when they put their creative or their intellectual property out there. And so they get the NDA signed so that they're not worried about their files going out there. But that risk that's always kind of present with any employee, that now you've collaborated on something creative together and now it's in their brain, you can't take that back, you can't unsee it. That risk is magnified when you're working with a freelancer who might be working with multiple clients, or they're working with you for a short time and then going on to somebody else. So Noella, how do you address that kind of concern when you're working with your clients, that maybe they're concerned that they're paying for repurposed work?
Right. Well, definitely, if you have a concern, it's something that you should definitely bring out during the interview process. The interview process is a time where you can have conversations with these freelancers so you can establish a good fit. And part of that is asking them the questions that you're curious about. If you want to learn about how they approach research, what sources they use, what their approach is to working with new clients, getting a sense of their process and how they go about working with new clients. That's really helpful in addressing your concerns.
Excellent. And what would be the risks to you personally if you did repurpose your work?
Well, definitely, it's not very good to plagiarize work, and so it breaks the trust between me and the client. It ruins their reputation really easily, and that's just something that when you're working with a freelancer, you want to make sure that you're communicating well and establishing how the work is going to be used and that it's original work.
Excellent. Great tip. Julie, how about you? Anything to add there about how you protect that?
I don't have too much to add there. Again, these are really great points. I think that, I really concur, though, that you need to build that trust and kind of have that relationship. It's the same as if you hired someone in-house. There's, you fill out some paperwork, you sign some things, but you have to kind of build that same sort of thing. And especially if you want to get something done, it gets to a point where you just are going to have to trust people.
Yeah, and I think even with that elevated risk of working with a freelancer, so maybe there's, again, those multiple clients or back-to-back clients, comes also with the advantage of that living resume. So we are always with the back of our head, knowing that our reputation is our livelihood. And so working with multiple people or people in short relationships, if we would risk that in any way or give somebody repurposed work, they can call us out on that immediately with the next client, and there goes our career, right? I mean, everything is based off of that trust for us as well.
Yeah.
Another thing that we had discussed prior to this call that I think would be of interest to our listeners would be that non-compete agreement. Sherry, I believe you had brought this up when we spoke before. Maybe you could speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd be happy to share a personal experience. I had a request for an interview come my way that looked like a great fit for my skill set. And we went through the process, all looked good. And then we got to the point of working together, and it said in the agreement that, if we work together, just be sure that within the next 2 years, please don't work with anybody else that could be a competitor of ours in the same space. Which, by the way, I hope all of the clients listening know that I thought that was totally reasonable. And it was unfortunate because I would have liked to do the work. But to be able to say, I'd love to do this work, but I can't abide by that because I actually have another client in that space is fine. I don't think anyone's offended by that. So if that's a concern, there's no reason not to just express that and know that the person on the other end will likely totally respect that need.
Excellent, excellent. So yeah, it's something that they can consider if they need to, but it's an understandable sacrifice that maybe the freelancer can't commit to that as well.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Sherry. Appreciate that. So another way for the hiring managers to gain insight into assessing a freelancer's skills and kind of establishing that trust is asking for some test projects, right? To ask them to produce something, a sample, before they are diving into a big full-fledged project. So Julie, I'm going to take this one to you. Have you done test projects? How do you feel about doing them?
I'm a big fan, and actually we do these a lot when we're hiring. It's a nice way to kind of get a feel for how you're going to work with someone and how you're going to collaborate on both sides. As a freelancer or a consultant or whatever you want to call yourself, it's really great to understand like how that working relationship is going to work. You don't want to lock yourself in. I do a lot of retainer-based work or longer-term, bigger projects. Before it's like, okay, we're going to work together for 6 months. Maybe let's see if we can tolerate each other for 1 month. Let's maybe see if we're able to communicate, if we're able to reach the goals, especially if you're coming in and you're not quite sure exactly 100% what you need. Maybe what I'm coming to the table with isn't actually your solution. On the other side, when I'm hiring, absolutely love it because, again, not everyone is cut out to be a freelancer. Not everyone works well independently. Not everyone has that. And I'm going to pick up really quick if that work isn't getting done. Or they're not able to do it, or they're not able to discipline themselves. So I love to make a small project, carve it out, and set a budget, and let's see how that goes.
Excellent, excellent. Sherry, Noella, how about you guys? You guys ever complete test projects to establish that relationship with a client?
No, I think those are great tips. I would just add that any test project should be paid. I think that asking somebody to do unpaid work is kind of unfair to the freelancer and won't attract the top talent that you're looking for.
Yeah, I like test. Actually, I can always consider like the start of every engagement as a test project because this is our chance to establish that working relationship and to see whether it's a good fit, to work out any kinks in communication. And I always try to tackle the most important parts. So for example, if I'm working on a 60-slide PowerPoint presentation, I generally work with the most challenging slides, so the most challenging amount of content to the process, or slides that have a lot of messaging that needs to be communicated. Usually doing the most high priority aspect of the project is helpful as a test to make sure that we're able to continue on working together on the rest of the project.
Great, that's a great tip. So try to do the test projects to check that relationship, do a paid test project so that you make sure you're getting that top freelance talent who's busy anyway and might not be willing to do a free one. And don't be afraid to tackle the big part of your project for the test. These are great tips, great takeaways. Noella, do you have anything specific? Oh, I think I got feedback. I thought you guys were speaking up.
Oh, no worries. Can you please repeat that question, Sherry?
Yeah, Noella, what would you recommend clients do to build trust over time?
For sure. Yes, for sure. So both communication and feedback are really important in building trust. So a term that I learned from Sherry is having a rhythm of communication. So whether you want to have weekly check-ins, whether that's a call or just an email about status, being able to discuss the progress of your projects is really helpful. And then with feedback, both giving constructive feedback, celebrating wins that are going on, things that are going really well, as well as things that can be improved. And then for hiring managers and clients, also to be open to receiving feedback from your freelancers. So that's always really helpful.
Excellent. Those are really good communication points for as you move past even the communication as you get going, that communication has got to stay established throughout. Excellent. Thank you, Noah. One of the other hot topic myths that we wanted to talk about and with your concerns about revolves around how to gauge the project scope, right? So how do you gauge that scope appropriately when you're engaging a remote worker? There's this idea out there that the details of the project have to be 100% laid out. You know, we've stressed already, we want to hear a lot of information in the project, the posting and in your discussions as you're getting rolling, but that can go too far into the fact that, you know, they have to have everything 100%. This is exactly what needs to be done, when it needs to be done. And that can be intimidating for even the most experienced project manager, that you have to know all of that from the get-go. Julie, maybe you can speak a little bit. How do you handle that changing scope as a freelancer and as a company?
Yeah, this is something that we deal with on a regular basis. Things change, business needs change, situations change, budgets change, everything changes all the time. And the longer and larger a project is, the more likely it's going to be that things are going to change. It's unavoidable. There's two ways I handle this. One, for maybe flat projects or things that are going to be, you know, fixed rate one-time things or ongoing retainers, I like referring to what I call an anticipated scope. This means I know what your budget is. I have a rough idea of what your goals are, generally speaking. And we know we're going to do some stuff. And it's probably going to be these things. But it might not be. We want to be responsive. And so within your budget and within the framework we've set up to collaborate together, we'll be able to change things up. On my end, because, you know, I do have an agency, if someone's like, holy crap, we forgot about our brand video and we're launching our new website, I'm capable of saying, you know what, let's toss these white papers out the window and make you a video. But it could be something smaller. It could be the fact that, let's say, maybe, you know, instead of those white papers, you need a bunch of blog posts, or all of a sudden you realize that your web copy is awful or something like that. You'd be able to kind of make those changes. Not all freelancers will be able to be flexible and be amenable to that, but, you know, that's something to explore. Alternatively, hourly. While not everyone is a fan of working hourly, and there are some projects that I strongly discourage not working hourly on, just because of the kind of work it is. Generally speaking, that leaves you a ton of wiggle room. So if you're like, you know what, you know, graphic artist, I need you to, you know, make some slides for me, and then like, oh, wait a minute, my landing page looks like crap, and oh my gosh, you know, can you edit my headshot? I'm speaking at this conference. Great, hourly covers it all. They can just take care of it under that umbrella.
Yeah. Excellent, excellent. So if there's a lot of uncertainty there, the project type, hourly might just be the way to go and buffer that.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Sherry, Noella, do you have anything to add about how you handle that keeping scope or that anticipated scope? I love that term.
Sherry, well, I think on the most part, in my experience, clients have been very open to discussing how, you know, changes in scope are going to be handled. You know, they understand that it's additional work, and so my clients are generally very open to discussing, you know, the time frames that they need, any additional budget or overage that's going to be involved, and so everybody is on the same page. So it's just communicate with your freelancers. If there's going to be more work, just discuss it with them so that you can have, like, you know, contribute to successful outcomes.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think those are great tips. And I think any freelancer, like Julie said, is going to be totally open to and totally understanding if a scope changes, especially, you know, with corporate clients. Nobody would say that their everyday life is the same every day and that goals don't change. That's just totally not the reality. So people understand. And just being 100% open and transparent is the best way to do that. You know, if you start the project and just say, look, here's the scope, here's what we're going to do, but it might change, I think anybody would be, you know, amenable to that.
I think that's, for our listeners, like, that's not a red flag. That still falls under that good communication, is to say up front, this is our anticipated scope, but it might change. Here's our wiggle room. That's not a flag for top-rated freelancers such as yourself, right?
Definitely not.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'd like to roll into one of the bigger misconceptions that we have heard, and this is the idea that big projects can't possibly be tackled with remote talent. So we know a lot of hiring managers are comfortable and fine with hiring freelancers for smaller projects, but they're going to save those bigger, those more strategic level projects for the traditional agencies. So I'm hoping that today you guys can help kind of dispel a few myths on this topic based on your experience. Sherry, maybe just start with you. Can you kind of kick off this conversation? Tell us about a really big project that you yourself have tackled on Upwork.
Sure. So I'm currently managing strategic communications for a Fortune 100 enterprise client on Upwork. So I think that's a perfect example of how you can hire somebody on the platform and work on something huge that you would work on, similar to work that you would, do in-house. Here's what I'd say about, how to tackle a project like that. I know, when you're working at a large enterprise or even at a startup, usually there's some form of a performance plan, right? So you set out your goals for the year and your objectives for the year. And then every year you review them with your manager. Maybe every week you have a weekly call, with your manager or director, and you walk through those goals and how you're meeting those objectives. It is no different on Upwork. The only difference is we're on Skype or we're on FaceTime or, we're on Upwork. So it's the exact same thing. The approach I took to working with this client was to establish a strategic communications annual operating plan, just as I would with any company in-house. And then every week, every month to look at where we are with the plan, what we're implementing, and just make sure there's alignment the whole way through.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the big tip I'd share is it's just really not that much different than if you were working with someone in-house.
Yeah, same level of evaluation and project management and breaking down those goals and deadlines.
Exactly.
Excellent. Julie, I know you've had a lot of experience with big projects because you own an agency, and we referred to the agency a couple times. I wonder if you could maybe just back up a little bit, and for those listeners who aren't familiar with an agency, just kind of tell us what that is, and then maybe what kind of project work does your agency typically engage with?
Sure. I think in terms of the agency, so there's a couple of different things going on Upwork, and so of course, one, there's freelancers, there's folks who are out there independently, and then you have agencies. And so agencies can be, so for example, I have an agency that we exist and we get business online and from all other sources, but we also exist on Upwork, and so there we're able to use that as a source to connect our talent with you and your projects. So it's just kind of a different kind of engagement via Upwork, and so that way you're able to work with a group of people with a few more resources and a bit more, probably a little more manpower than a single individual. So this is probably most helpful, if you are going to have changing needs, if you need large volumes of work. It's a lot easier, let's say, for those people who do need to hire like 10 freelancers. Take it from me, managing 10 freelancers is not easy. It takes a lot of time. So you can go and you can tap into the agency and then have someone else manage those 10 freelancers for you because they've already hired them, they already have them, and they know them. So I've talked enough about that. I forgot the second part of the question, but in terms of the kind of, some of the projects, like we've taken on some very large projects for enterprise clients where we were able to churn out sometimes massive amounts of content or turn around strategy projects in really record time, or be able to be really nimble and provide a wide, array of services under one umbrella and under one project manager, which definitely takes a lot off of the client's plate.
Absolutely. How do you think those companies can get the most out of engaging a freelance agency?
I think, when working with, any kind of agency, I think part of it is really looking at this kind of goes back to trust a little bit. You're hiring folks because you feel that they are competent, that they're experts, that they understand, they have a deep knowledge of what they're doing. So part of that is working with them with with that and trusting that one, they know what they're doing. Usually when you're working with those kind of people, they know what they're doing. You don't have to know every single bit of your project inside and out and dictate every little bit. These are people that should understand the nuances and have a higher level of expertise. Two, really kind of tap into what they have. If you are working with an agency that has a good breadth of services, there's no reason for you to be like, oh, I know you guys have a video editor, but I'm just going to go eat up 20 hours of my time trying out a bunch of them. Really work with the services that you have there, because that's not only going to save you time and be more efficient, but for a lot of agencies, myself included, we provide greater value, i.e. better pricing for the more stuff we do for you. So that's really part of it. And then, yeah, looking to that project management. It takes a lot of time, and working with a good agency that has good oversight takes a lot off your plate.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Sherry, what else would you like clients to know about engaging with freelance agencies?
Sure. So I work with some nonprofits that maybe only have the resources to hire one person right now, but at some points throughout the year need more than one person. And so that's a great opportunity to be able to leverage Upwork to say, okay, I'm going to hire an expert now who also has the backing of an agency behind them, that when things do get busy for that big signature event or that big fundraiser, that freelancer can then go, as Julie said, go to their trusted team and, bring a lot of power behind those big projects without the nonprofit eating up costs throughout the whole year. So I think that's a huge benefit to being able to tap into agencies on Upwork.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And Noah, I think that taps into a little bit of a conversation that you and I have had about the different kinds of large projects that there are on Upwork. And Noelle, you and I are individual freelancers. So as an individual freelancer, like, what does a big project look like for you? And what have you done as far as big projects are concerned on the platform?
Right, for sure. Yeah, so when we refer to different types of big projects, so you can imagine projects where there are lots of deliverables that need to be done in a short amount of time. So like as Sherry said, if you have like a launch or something, so there's, it's going to be all hands on deck leading up to that launch. And other big projects that happen a lot on Upwork are ongoing working relationships. So as Julie mentioned, working with the same client on an ongoing basis, working on different projects for them, or projects on a regular schedule. So those are all projects that I've been part of on Upwork. And what I would encourage hiring managers to do is kind of explore what type of freelancer solution would best fit your needs. Whether you want somebody to work very closely with you leading up to a deadline so that you can get it launched, or whether you want to hire an individual or a person to work with you on an ongoing basis. Or if you do really need like an agency that can provide multiple services. So definitely a lot of different options on Upwork, and just keep looking for the best fit.
I think that's a great point, Noella, because I think there's clearly a big need there that is fulfilled by the Upwork agencies, and I think that's important. And Julie, to drive your point home, to have a project manager who is part of an agency that's going to carry that load is huge. And then there are those times where it's a big project that's a different type of big project. The ones I engage in quite frequently as an instructional designer, taking on something, maybe I'm doing a new hire training package for a company that's just getting started. They need me and my expertise for a month building that training package with them. Once they launch that program, they don't need me anymore. So it doesn't make sense to have somebody in-house. They don't need an agency, but a single freelancer for a big, just time-intensive project. Just that level of big project is very based on how you're approaching it. So, thank you for all of that feedback, ladies. One final question, kind of along this, tackling big projects, but more from big projects from you. So from a personal perspective, I would just love to hear what outcome on Upwork you are most proud of. Maybe it's the coolest topic you worked on, the best collaboration you had, the most innovative you got to be. I would just love to go down the line and hear, what was your most proud moment on Upwork. Sherry, let's kick it off with you.
Sure. So in communications, I think it's a huge honor to have a chance to be the voice for a company. I've had the opportunity to do that both for big companies on Upwork and small startups that are now big that didn't have a voice in the beginning. So to have a chance to do that is a huge honor and unique.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Noella, how about you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm happy to say that I'm still working with my very first Upwork client. So it's been over 3 years, and it actually happened to be the first job that I had ever applied to as well. And I saw their job post, and this was even before I had an account. And I was so interested in their project that I spent a week learning how to write a profile and creating a portfolio just so I could apply. And it was a great fit, and we've been working together ever since. And having that opportunity to work with this client on an ongoing basis for so long, we're really close friends now. I spoke with them last week, and I was saying how nervous I was about doing this live webinar, but they're an accomplished speaker, so they gave me some tips. Overall, I'm really thankful to Upwork for connecting me with some great clients and creating these opportunities for all of us.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that speaks so highly to the relationships you can develop even remotely.
Yeah.
Julie, how about you?
I've worked with a lot of people through, and a lot of businesses through Upwork over the years. So it's hard to pick one to say that I'm most proud of, and also I really don't know who's in attendance, so I don't want to offend anyone. But I think some of the outcomes that that I'm the most proud of are the ones when we're able to kind of sit down and we're able to work with someone usually in the startup space or small business owner, solopreneur, solo consultant, et cetera, and they know they need help and they want help and they want strategy, and we're able to maybe take them from these engagements where maybe it's like, you know what, I need this. They'll say I need content, and you quickly realize they don't need content. They need strategy. They need help. They need a deeper thing that's actually going to get them results. So there's a few folks I've been able to work with, and it's been really great because they went in thinking like, I'm just going to place an order for some content, really expensive content. It's going to turn out really great and solve all my problems. And to be able to stop them before they spent money and did something on something that was not going to help them, and said it was able to back it up and actually funnel the resources into something that actually give them ROI. Those have been the ones that I feel amazing about afterwards, even if the budget for our collaboration is done, again, one and done, and I'm pointing them maybe to a freelancer for an ongoing basis. That's going to be a better option. Really love those.
I love that. I love that, because if they turn somewhere in-house and they had it in their head that this is exactly what I need to accomplish this project, and somebody would be able to do it. But to be able to turn to an expert who's been there, done that, and can say, no, you're going to get a better value and a better result if you take this route, that is a proud moment for sure. Awesome. Thank you. All right, we have just a couple of questions from our Q&A that I would love to cover at the end here. Julie, I'm going to start this one with you. On-site versus remote. When do you know it's the right time to make that transition?
That's a really good question. I think in terms of, if you're collaborating with someone, and I think that's also a similar question of, there's so many factors. Do you on-site versus remote, freelancer versus hiring? I think a lot of it comes down to your ongoing needs and your budget. It's really to the point for most clients I work with, it's really going to be, when do I need these roles on a regular basis? For a lot of these specialized skills and roles, you can't hire a graphic artist on salary. It doesn't make sense to bring them on your team and pay their benefits and do all that other stuff for 2 hours a week. That is crazy pants. But, then you want to collaborate with them, that's freelancer time. On-site versus remote, there's not a lot of stuff that you really need to have on site. A lot of it, I think, if you want to collaborate, and I do on sites with clients quite often, but it's when we want to hone in, we want to dig really deep, and we want to spend an intense specialized effort. Pretty much everything can be done from a distance. Maybe if you do want to do 3-4 weeks of a strategy engagement in 2 days, I'm going to need to sit down with you. But otherwise, a lot of it can be done completely remote.
Excellent. Excellent, thank you. Sherry, Noella, do you have anything you'd like to add about that and you're trying to make that decision?
Sure, I'd say if there's a special event, like I mentioned, a fundraiser or a big signature event, then of course I think that's an opportunity to say to a freelancer, look, we can work remotely for, X number of weeks, but then could you join me on site for X number of days or X number of weeks? Then in that situation, I think that would be a great opportunity to work in person. But like Julia said, it's really no different, I don't think, working remotely than it is working in person on most projects.
Excellent, excellent, thank you. So I think one last question we have time for, and that is if clients are not familiar with hiring remote talent, they've never done it before, or they're just getting into it and having a hard time evaluating the freelancer skills, how do you demonstrate to hiring managers in your proposal and your response to their job posting that you're the right person with the right skills for their job? And how do you stay up to date with the skill sets that you see out there?
I can start with this one. So I would say, just as we expect clients to try to be as specific as they can in their job posts, you should expect a freelancer to maybe be as specific as they can in their proposal to you. So look for someone who says, I read that you're really struggling with X. I did X for another client. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect them to be as specific as you're trying to be. So I think that's a great thing to look for, specificity.
Excellent. Thank you. Noella, how about you?
So usually when clients provide really like a detailed job description, I can get a sense of what type of work they're looking for. And so I have examples from my portfolio that I can attach. And then when I do that, I generally just explain what the goals the clients that the portfolio piece had, and how we solve that problem, and how, if I have any results from the work that I can share with the client. For your second question on how to stay up to date with my skill set, usually just taking professional development courses. Design is always changing, the tools are changing, the Adobe Creative Suite updates every year. So just being able to be efficient and know what technology can best help my clients, that's really helpful. And then staying up to date on industry trends. So I'll usually subscribe to email newsletters of my clients' competitors. So that's a good way for me to learn more about their space and better help my clients.
Excellent, excellent. And you can be more specific in your skills that you're offering if they're good tip. Thank you. And Julie?
I think the one thing is asking good questions. For a hiring manager, and when I'm putting that cap on, I want to see people that ask smart questions, and possibly even call me out if maybe I'm asking for something that's awkward or something like that. So I try to do that with clients. If they're asking for something, their proposal, that I'm like, I don't think this is the right fit, or if it doesn't make sense, or if there's something missing, like I'll ask about their timeline directly. I'll ask about the kind of clients they work with and things like that, because I am engaged and I want to show that engagement, and I like when people apply to my gigs, they're showing that level of engagement. And also in terms of skills, I'll hop on that one really quick. I'm a big fan of certifications. We're a HubSpot partner. HubSpot has tons of certifications, not just for people who give them money, with a lot of great courses. Spend some money on LinkedIn Learning, conferences. I speak at conferences partially so I can get that free badge and go attend and learn those. It's really, really valuable to stay really up to date and hear from other leaders in my industry and my clients' fields.
Awesome. And I don't think you're alone in that. I think there's a lot of research out there to support that freelancers stay more upskilled than the traditional workforce. Excellent. Well, ladies, we are out of time. So I just want to thank you so much for being here to share your insight today, for giving our attendees the opportunity to hear their questions answered by people who are actually engaged in these processes and successfully freelancing for businesses like theirs. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you to Upwork for continuing to give companies and freelancers such as ourselves this marketplace to be able to accomplish our goals together. And last but certainly not least, thank you very much for our attendees for taking the time to listen today and to figure out how to leverage this workforce for your business. It is my sincerest hope that you are walking away with your questions answered and your concerns alleviated, because there are thousands upon thousands of highly educated, technically skilled, uniquely qualified experts out there in this remote talent pool. And if you're still having any questions that are preventing you from using those individuals in the most effective way for you, please just keep on asking those questions to Upwork, because I truly believe remote freelancers are transforming the working world, and I don't think that transformation should stop at your front door. So thank you very much for being here today. Thank you.